All right, how we doing, man?
Hey,
Glad to
we're
see
doing
you on
good.
again.
Hey, yeah, likewise, likewise.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool, man. It's been another busy week here, so I'm happy to get on here and talk about this and just see where the conversation goes, like each time.
See where it goes. Yeah, I'm always down. I'm always down. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah. So welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the third video, and Um, we're going to dive into another topic tonight and see where it goes. And so tonight we were going to talk about effortless action. And this is a Taoist concept, but it can also be found in other traditions and things like that. But I think most people would attribute effortless action to Taoism. And what it's called in Taoism is Wu Wei. And so some of you may have heard of that before. And I think it's an important concept in self help or spiritual life or just trying to grow as a person. To understand this concept is very important, in my opinion. Um, so, yeah, I thought it'd be interesting to talk about. And with that being said, and since I'm saying that, this mostly comes from Taoism, again, it can be found in a few other things too, but I'm going to read a few verses from the Tao Te Ching. And some of you probably already know that this is basically the classic Taoist scripture, if you will. Um, and it's a really good book. It's actually very powerful, very interesting. Have you read that book, by the way?
No, I haven't. I have not. Is that
You should read it,
so? You
man.
got?
It's good. It's really
Do
good.
you have the book? You got the book with you, or?
I do. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, good. Oh, okay,
I could
okay,
even let you
okay.
borrow it. Well, and so the one I have, the one that I have is this one right here,
Oh, okay.
and it it's a translation by this guy named Ralph Allen Dale,
Yeah,
and I wouldn't I wouldn't call this translation the most authentic one. He
yeah.
kind of translates it in his own way a little bit and puts his own little twist on things. So
Mm,
there, um, there's some argument whether like this is really the best one to read or not. I thought it was
mm,
pretty good. I actually liked his take on it. Um,
yeah,
but but I think there are like if you were to go talk to somebody who's like really into this, they would probably point you to like a different one. Um,
mm.
so and I might even want to look into a different translation. But I thought this one that he wrote it was pretty good. Um, but
Man,
anyway,
what would make that even better? With the picture in the front of it,
yeah,
it just makes me want to like smell that flower. Feels like a scratch and sniff.
right? Doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't even know what type of flower that is, but it does look like it would smell really good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It gets you in
All
that
right,
mind
sorry.
state, where you're just
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, you're like,
yeah.
bring me. Yes. All right, here we go.
Yeah, so now these particular passages that I'm about to read, actually I'm not going to read like the full um, verse, right? But I'm just going to like take little snippets out of it. And the
Mm,
reason I did that was because uh, I'm trying to focus on Wu Wei or effortless action. I'm trying not to say Wu Wei too much because I want, we speak English, obviously, so I want to
yeah,
use like an English term so it's not too abstract for people.
yeah.
So I know there's people all around the world watching us, but obviously we're communicating these things in English. So I try not to do things or title our videos with things that people may not understand. Like I just want to use like English language, right? Just to make it simple. So even though it's called Wu Wei, one translation is effortless action. So anyway, I found some stuff in here that pertains to effortless action, and I just wanted to use this to kind of kickstart the conversation. Um,
Yeah.
and so there's two here, and then there's one on my phone that I pulled up. And again, I think it comes down to the translation. Like sometimes this guy, I think he's spot on with the way he translates it, and then other times it's kind of like I feel like it could have been said a little bit better.
Mm.
But anyway, so I'll start off with this one. Bill, how do you want to do this? Because I was going to read three of them, and so I could either stop after each one, and we could kind of
Yeah.
see where we go with that, or I could just do all three. What are you thinking?
Yeah, let's do that first one. Yeah, yeah, because I
Okay,
like to hear it, because sometimes it takes me a little bit, and we'll talk through it for me to fully ponder on it. So, yeah.
exactly. I
Okay.
think that's a good idea. Yeah, that
Okay.
way we don't mix them all up. We just have one thought we can kind of go off of. Okay, so again, thinking of effortless action, right? This one, and this comes from verse 64, is what I'm about to read, but just part of it, right? So it says, those who interfere in processes disrupt themselves. Those who hold tightly to possessions lose everything. Wise people succeed because they never force an outcome. They never suffer a loss because they are not attached to anything. Wise people don't accumulate possessions or teach anyone to amass things. They devote themselves to the natural rhythms that the great integrity brings.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So, in this, I see, um, I was watching this film one time. Um, it was actually this old Indian film. It had just happened to be. This was a while back. Just by chance, I was just watching this thing. It was easy. It was. I think it was even a like a silent film, maybe.
Hmm.
And I was reading it as it was playing. But anyways, I think I've told you this story. So there's this guy. He's connected with he's a family man, right? He's probably our age, and he's unhappy. I kind of forget what happens. Maybe something happened in his life, whatever the case may be. But he's very unhappy. So he runs across some guy that's uh, a vagabond. He just again not attached to anything. Maybe just look like homeless, right? But
Yeah.
he appears to be just out there, but he's content and he's very happy, right? Uh, and he comes off, again out there, and maybe a little crazy too. But he tells him that the only way you're going to be free, and again, I'm not hitting all this in sequence, but basically, he tells him the only way you're going to be totally free is if you let go of everything and you have to walk away from everything. And then
Hmm.
you just have to be. So, and that was him actually. And then the hardest part, because he was starting to do that, but he couldn't leave his family. And all the way, he wasn't all the way complete until he finally left his family, which is against everything that we're taught, right? But he
Yeah.
left everything and then he kind of went on his journey. He was sad at first because he left his family, but then, I don't know how much time had went by, and then he comes back. He even like sees his family. I think at the like at maybe at the end, and it's like he knows them, but there's not like really of attachment anymore.
Yeah.
But and then he himself is like kind of a little out there, like somebody that might be out at sea for years, and he comes back and land, and he's kind of like weird, he's a little out there, just like, wide-eyed, and he's just like looking at you, but he's just so in the moment, but he's just vibing with the world. There it like what you just read. There is nothing to gain because there's nothing to lose. There's it's just you just are. The world just really doesn't even matter anymore, and nothing that the world does to you even matters. And I think in that, and then reading what you just said, getting very in tune with yourself, and and then with this teaching, reinstilling that all these things that again that we attach to, or this world brings to us, that we live in and we participate in. Yes, yet all these things, they will sooner or later bring you down some way, shape, or form, or you have to reattach yourself to something else. But uh, in this, it teaches you to kind of just walk your own path, and it just kind of, if the wind blows you over there, you just kind of just let it blow you over there. Don't resist anything. Um,
Yeah.
I think also it's even, I kind of I'm still in the mindset. I've been in the mindset for a little bit of everything kind of happens for a reason. And so if it was all supposed to be, just don't resist it. And wherever you end up, it's how it was supposed to happen, you know.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. It's interesting, and there's a lot of sayings like this in that book where it talks about by gaining so many things you end up losing everything, or by doing this and this, it has the opposite effect of what you thought it would have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think what it's getting at is, and I like that last part about the natural rhythms and the great integrity, and that's the way that this guy who translated that version, that's the way that he describes the Tao, is he calls it the great integrity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just kind of like the natural harmony of everything, and learning how to get in tune with that and just like flow with that. Almost how like water, when it's flowing down a river, and there's rocks and there's branches and there's all these different things, it just finds a way around them,
Mm-hmm.
under them, over them, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and it finds a way to continue to just go through. But it does it again in almost an effortless way, right? Like the water doesn't try to force itself through the middle of a rock, it finds a way to flow around it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think if you can get into that flow, things become easier, not because they're inherently easier, but because you know how to deal with them in a better way. You know what I mean? So I
Oh,
think that that's kind of what it's getting at, in my opinion.
yeah. When I looking at this, I also heard like another story, very short, of like this painter, and he was very wise and in the Tao, and like these kids or students were watching this guy, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna sit up here and I'm gonna like paint this picture," and I don't even think he was a painter. And the students were just like, "Yeah, whatever, old man." And he just grabbed a paintbrush and he just starts just slapping paint all over the place, right? Just but with no care. You know, I mean, he's just so in tune, right? Like the
Yeah.
water you just spoke about. He's just flowing. And then in like, I don't know how fast, in seconds or in a minute, he steps back and everybody's like, you know, and he like, there's like a masterpiece there. And they're like, how, you know, how did you do that? You know, and he's just like, yeah, I forgot what his rebuttal was, but he was just so, you know, that Wu Wei thing that it almost like, I, so there was that, I heard that. And then I was like, man, the way that it's talking about, I started to think about like these movies, like those crouching tiger, hidden dragon, you know, where they're kind of
Yeah.
like floating in the air and doing this. And I was like, man, you know, I wonder if that came about in some type of those types of teachings. Like if you do this, you could do this and do that. And then I started thinking, I was like, man, this whole time, you know, when you're real young, you're like thinking like magic's real. And then you
Yeah.
grow up and you figure out it's all fake and it, you know, and it's kind of distraught, at least it was to me, you know. When I found out magic wasn't real and then that dragons weren't real, that was really tough for me.
Oh,
But
devastating
but
news.
yeah, but uh yeah, just all that stuff, man. Like just the magic. And then I was thinking, I was like, man, maybe if you do get in tune and you practice, I'm not saying it, but I'm just saying like maybe like 10% of me right now is thinking that if you really got deep in it, maybe maybe magic is real. Maybe you could vibe with and intertwine with the fabric of reality and manipulate it, you know,
Yeah.
and uh, you know how they say you know, or at least in the books that we grew up with, if you have enough faith, you can move mountains, you know, and that was like bourgeois, right? Like, yeah, whatever. But
Yeah.
in an enlightened sense, and maybe in the Wu Wei where you're more connected with reality, where maybe you can manipulate and vibrate the right way, you know, maybe you could move mountains. You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
Uh, you know, so or maybe you can turn water into wine or walk on water and you know all these things or the stuff that we see on those you know old timey samurai ninja movies, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. Where they're just like running across the wall and,
Yeah, yeah,
doing all
yeah,
sorts of stuff that you wouldn't even think is possible.
yeah, yeah,
Well, it
yeah.
almost reminds me of the Matrix too, of when when he truly realizes like he's the one
Mm,
and he sees everything in code and he is able to manipulate reality, like stopping the bullets at the
yeah,
end and all
yeah,
that
yeah.
stuff because he's just at that level where it's um like you were saying, the fabric of reality,
Yeah.
he's able to see that for what it really is rather
Uh-huh.
than, kind of this simulation, if you will.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
interesting.
And
Very, you know, when you had brought it up, I was thinking because we had lightly talked about it before, but now I dove a little bit into it, and yeah, it really got me thinking. So, just good topic, you know, to
yeah.
ponder on.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, let's read another one here and see where it takes us. This one, okay, so this one is verse 43, and it says, "That which is most tender can overcome that which is most rigid. That which has least substance can penetrate that which has least space. Acting without deliberate action and teaching without uttering a word are rarely practiced. So few find their way to the great integrity."
Yeah.
So, yeah, on that one, teaching without speaking, I thought was an interesting part of that. And then, being able to do things without trying too hard.
Hmm.
It's like what I'm trying to think of that one thing. I don't know if Yoda says it or somebody else, but he's like something like there is no try, there's just do. You
Oh,
you don't. Is that Yoda or is that someone else who says that?
man, I know
I
exactly
gotta
what
I
you're
gotta
talking
look it up
about.
now.
Yeah, you have. Yeah. Well,
You
there's
know?
another saying in a movie that I like. I think it's No Country for Old Men. And it's like right at the very end, you got that old man. He comes walking in the door, and here I'll just say the same. Like there's this guy, and things have happened to him, and there's this old man in his 80s. It's like South Texas town. He's like, man, the more things, or how's he go? He goes, the more that you're trying to get what's been took from you, the more that, or more that's going out the front door. So, you're over there chasing what's been taken from you. And all the while, everything that's present, you're losing more as you're chasing what's been took from you. Uh,
Exactly.
but
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I just looked it up too. It is Yoda, by the way, and
No,
he says do or do not. There is no try.
do or do not. There is no. See, but I think this stuff. I don't know how old this is. Do you know, kind of more or less, like 2, 3, 4,000 years back? This Wu Wei or Tao,
uh,
like
Man, I wish
ballpark.
I did know. I wish I did know it. I want to say,
Well, regardless, it's pretty old, right?
yeah.
Like thousands of years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's another thought I was thinking. Back then, uh, every era had its issues, right? And being hard and stuff. But things that they didn't have back then that make it a little bit more difficult for us now would be all this technology and stuff. Things that really uh, you know take the mind and really mess it all up. And kind of get us further into different worlds and fantasies and stuff like that.
Oh,
So when
yeah.
they were talking about this, you know, simplifying things, I think that um, us being, you know, in this, that like in the Wu Wei, that maybe it doesn't particularly, I don't know if it particularly means you're supposed to use it in this world, or more in reality, like if I'm just gonna flow and just kind of whatever at my job, I don't know if it would work necessarily, you know.
Yeah.
But like if I start to disassociate myself from all this stuff in the world and just, and practice this, I can see where it could be very, very a really good thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I see what you're saying, but what I would disagree, and the only reason why is because I think what it's getting at is think about it. There's a couple different examples that I like to use. One is like the athlete, right, who's so good at their sport, and it's almost a natural talent that they have, right? Like
Mm.
the Olympics, right? The Olympics are on right now, and there's all these amazing athletes out there doing all these different things. And when they're doing that stuff, um, they've, yeah, I think initially, yeah, you have to put in effort, but you do get to a point where there's almost not really that much effort going into it because you've trained so much that it's 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 natural for you to do that. It wouldn't be any different than walking.
Mm.
You're doing what you just know how to do. Or
Yeah.
the other thing I think of is a musician who's really good at their instrument, right? Or
Mm.
even if they're good at singing, right? But let's use an instrument as an example. Um, and I've heard musicians say this. I mean, myself being one, I haven't fully gotten to this level. I mean, I feel like maybe in some ways I've been able to hit it. I play the drums, right? I mean, you know that, and I
Mm.
feel like something like that, like the drums, I'm able to naturally just kind of go with it. Like even when I first started playing, it was just easy for me to pick up and just do it.
Yeah.
Whereas something like guitar is a lot harder for me to like really sit there and try to learn. Like I've never really been able to play guitar really well, but beside the point, there are musicians who get to a point where the instrument almost becomes an extension of themselves,
Hmm.
and there's no really thinking about what you're doing.
Hmm.
You're just doing it, you're just flowing, and it just naturally comes. So I think you can get that way even with work. Like you get to a point where, and maybe it depends on what industry you're in, I don't know, but I feel like you could get to a point where you're just doing your stuff, and it's just it's just like a rhythm, right? And because the not trying, it doesn't mean you're not doing anything. It just means you're not exerting so much energy to get the task done. It's more of a flow, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? So
Yeah.
that's I think that's what it's trying to get at. So I think that could be done in anything you do
Oh yeah.
if you were really able to harness that.
Yeah. Yeah. I
But
mean, like I said, I see it. I see that. Um, uh, yeah, getting into work and doing things like that. Again, I think if you got good at it, like you said, like kind of like the Matrix thing, of kind of manipulating. I think, while everybody's kind of locked in
mhm,
uh a certain way, you could kind of swoop in and kind of, just by just flowing with things, you could kind of, again, I use the word manipulation, but you know, uh, you know, get things the way you want them, uh, or that just feel better for you. You might not even want them. You're just like, oh, well, that kind of worked out in my favor.
yeah.
Um, and by not really doing anything. Also I heard something of, you know, if I were to prep for like a meeting, right? And I prep and prep and prep and prep, and then I get to the meeting, I'm all nervous and stuff, and then I'm saying what I've prepped, you know, that's that's not really me,
Mm,
right? I'm
yeah.
just I'm going over there and I'm playing to their minds, I guess, so they can, I can be, they accept me and accept what I'm saying to get what I want. But I think maybe even in that, I think what I was getting is, you know, maybe you don't even prep. Maybe you just go in there and you're just yourself. Maybe, go over your statistics and stuff, but maybe on your deliverance and stuff like that, and it's just kind of go in there and you're just yourself, and then there's nothing to be, well, yeah, there would be nothing to be nervous about. And then if you went into a meeting and you don't care about the outcome, then there's no nervousness. You're just going in there and you're just like, well, if I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. I could care less whether it goes one way or the other, right?
Yeah,
So there is no more
that's a good
worry.
point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I think it goes into a lot of different aspects of life. Like another analogy I thought of earlier was, you know how they tell you if, you know, to kind of prepare you, if you happen to get in a car accident, like it's better for you to be loose rather than
Mm,
all tensed up and everything.
yeah,
You know, because if you try to like tense up and all that, you're gonna get more injured. But
right.
if you just kind of like ride with it, you know, kind of like a crash dummy,
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah,
you know, it turns out that you could actually end up not getting nearly as hurt as if you just try to like tense up or brace yourself too much. Um, so
yeah.
I
Try
look
to
at it that
resist
way.
it, right? Yeah, yeah.
What was that?
Oh no, like I say, you're trying to resist
Yeah,
what's about to happen.
exactly. Yeah, the resistance thing. Yeah, I think that's an important concept. Um, and so with that, you just want to stay loose and you like you said, you don't want to resist, kind of go with the flow. And so
Yeah,
that's another way that I see it is you are um, one, not letting fear take over, which I think is an important aspect of this teaching. And two, you're you're not trying to forcefully generate an outcome, right? It's you will always get the outcome you want if you don't desire an outcome. It's kind of
yeah,
like what you were saying about the meeting, right? It's like if it goes the way that you know uh, is in my favor, then that's great. If it goes the way that you know is not in my favor, like let's say it's an interview and like I don't get the job, right? Then it kind of ties into also what you were saying about everything having a reason behind it. You know,
mm,
it's like, okay, well then that's the way it was meant to be, and you know, we're good. But I think where the suffering comes in is when you desire a specific outcome and it doesn't happen the way that you wanted it to happen, and
yeah,
now you're suffering because
yeah,
you know, and then there's force behind that too because you're like, man, I was trying really hard, going back to even what you said about just kind of speaking naturally and not trying to prep too much. Like maybe you kind of have a general plan of what you want to do, like a little bit of an outline, but you just go in there with the delivery all natural.
yeah,
And with that, you know, it's not forced. You're not like, oh man, I have to follow like XYZ each bullet point. It's not as robotic, you know.
yeah,
And with all of that, with it not being forced and robotic, um, and then also with you not desiring a very specific outcome, the suffering, right? And that's a big thing that Buddhism talks about as well, is like the suffering goes away at that point,
yeah.
flowing.
Well, I can relate because it happens to me on my job, on stuff that I do. So, you know, I I'll have to go into somebody's living room and, kind of pitch kind of what we're going to be doing and to see if we're going to get that job or not. And sometimes I'll be wanting a job so bad, right? Maybe we're slow, or maybe it's a really good job and it's going to pay quite a bit. And I've got it on my mind, and you know, failure is no option. I have to succeed on this, and I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself, right? And I can feel it. But I'm prepping, and I'm saying, okay, I'm gonna do all that I can do. I'm gonna leave it all out there. Uh, and I tell myself, as long as I do that, I'll be okay, mentally, if
Yeah.
whatever happens. But I say that to myself, but I'm not prepared for failure, man. If they come in there and they tell me, if it don't go my way, you know, um, and I've prepped for it and I feel like, man, I'm always thinking if something doesn't go my way, like, man, I could have done this, or, man, why didn't I think of that? Hindsight. And yeah, and it'll weigh on me. It'll weigh on me. And there's some jobs that will haunt me, not for long because of, our teachings and stuff, able to kind of get rid of it pretty quickly if I want to. That's another
Right.
thing. The mind just kind of just loves to just dwell in that stuff, but
Oh yeah.
um uh but yeah, I have to, and then, and I'm not saying I don't know if this is part of the Tao or the Wu Wei or whatever, but in the thing of me thinking, it always snaps me out of it because I'll say, you know what? Everything happens for a reason. So, and again, I don't know if it's the truth, but I said for the past couple of years, I've been kind of just feeling that way, just on things, how things have happened. And I don't
Mm,
know if if maybe it's because I have just kind of let, maybe subconsciously, maybe I have been kind of just kind of sitting back and kind of just like, kind of maybe I have been vibing, and I have been a little bit more silent. So when things do happen, I'm starting to notice it, and then I'm like, if I was so busy up here, maybe I wouldn't have noticed that sign, or
yeah.
that, was that a coincidence, or was that meant to be, or you know, so, and then I I say that I think there's some kind of connection there of when I say, whatever happened just now, it didn't end the way I wanted it to, but it was supposed to happen. Maybe it was getting me ready for something else, and so you just need to learn the lesson of what just happened, because maybe it's getting you ready for something that's about to come. And
Right.
and if I do that, I swear, man, I tell you, man, I do that. And I'm telling you, that's why I feel like, man, okay, so it shall be written, so it shall be done. It's like it'll play, that card will come up at some point in time, maybe a week later, a month later, and there'll be something that I learned that I'll implement in the future. You know what I mean?
Mm, yeah.
And so yeah. But I say that because I see when we're talking right now of, okay, I'm not worried about the outcome. I am, but then I have to remind myself that, I guess my reminder is when I tell myself everything happens for a reason. That's almost like maybe even in the Wu way of just like, don't worry about the outcome. You know what I mean? It's just said a little bit differently.
Right.
Um, how I say it to myself, but and it works. It works. It puts me at ease, you know? And and I just move along. And I move along and I just kind of let the, I guess, yeah. I guess there is something to that now that I'm thinking about it. See? I'm starting to come around on this old Wu Wei. I'm gonna have to get that book there, Matt. And
Well, when you were talking about that, it reminds me of the anxiety conversation where you were saying that saved you, which is
yeah.
a bold statement because you would think, well, who would ever want to go through that? And like, how could that save you? But it's like, if you didn't go through that, you wouldn't be where you are today. But I think at the beginning of you starting to experience all that anxiety, you wouldn't have thought that at all. It would
Oh,
have been, it would have been
no
like,
way.
dude, I don't want this. This is not why would I want this? And
Yeah. You know, speaking of that, when you're going through it, or yeah, going through it, you're going, man, ignorance is bliss, you know? Why couldn't I just go back to the unconscious? I would have been fine, you know, being a robot, being a slave to this world. I just don't want to feel this anymore. I'll go back to it, you know? I don't want to feel different. I don't want to be enlightened. It's way too scary. I have no idea where I'm going to end up. I don't even know if this is the way. Like, screw that. I'll go back and be a robot, you know? Uh
yeah, it's like not to cut you off, but it reminds me again of the Matrix, the first one with
yeah.
Cypher,
Oh
where
yeah.
he's like, I want
Sleep in
to
state.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like I want to be able to taste the steak and like, just really experience that and, not know that it's a program or
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever. Like I just want to be taken out of all of the real world and I just want to go back into the matrix and not know any different.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And maybe it's that way, man. Maybe it's supposed to be, you know, maybe it's supposed to be hard to get to the other side, you know? Maybe it, you know, just like anything like in sports or playing an instrument or you always hear like, well, if it was easy, everybody would do it, you know?
Yeah,
Um, and I guess that goes the same as becoming more and more conscious and walking another path. It's very, very challenging and could be very scary. And it's just like, man, yeah, no, I'm good here. I'll just, I know there's a ball and chain on my foot, but I don't know where that path leads, and yeah, it's just no, not for me. So,
exactly.
okay. But then some of us are forced down that path, so
Right.
we have no choice, you know.
Yeah. I
But
love what you said though about putting in the effort. I know this is probably sounding like it's going to go against what we're talking about because we're talking about effortless action, but I want to make sure to not be confusing about this. I don't think that that means not putting in effort. Um, but I do think that going back to not desiring the outcome is a good part. And it's not the full lesson, but I do feel like it's part of this teaching in this lesson because I feel like if you've done everything you can do and you feel like you've put in your best effort and you've given it your all, no matter what that is, blood, sweat, and tears, all of that. And then if it still doesn't go the way that you wanted it to go, um, I mean, what more can you ask for? You did everything you could, you know. So I don't think it should be taken as not doing anything. I think it's more of flowing with the harmony of nature and the universe and kind of learning how to get into that zone, if you will. And if you do that, then, you're able to live a more wholesome life, but also one that's free of suffering. But again, what I'm trying to say is I don't think that we should take it as not doing anything or not trying to do your best at something, right? Because even if we go back to the example of the athletes, especially like these Olympic athletes or the musician, right, who is so good at his instrument that it just becomes an extension of himself, and him playing the craziest song ever is no different than him walking down the street. It's as effortless as that, right? But you do have to put in effort to get there. Like they say, practice makes perfect. So
yeah,
I think that to get to that level of the effortless action, it does actually require initially some effort. And I would say for me, what that looks like for us in the conversations we're having is probably having a practice like meditation, right? Where if you're doing that enough and you're like getting deep into meditation and you start getting better with that and then again like we keep talking about the distinction between the mind and the being and understanding that difference and you know where the being able to observe where the mind is coming in
mm,
and kind of being able to pull that back a little bit and go back into just being the being.
mm,
But I do think over time, if you do this enough, you can get to a certain level where it's not as forced and you just kind of naturally are in that state. You're just flowing with all of life, and
Yeah.
you might could even argue that you wouldn't even have to practice anything anymore at that point. I don't know, like you could get maybe to a certain level where that's possible. Actually, that reminds me of another thing. Okay, now I got to get this over here.
Oh, okay.
Give me a second because this
Yeah.
this blew my mind the other day when I read this. I was
Okay.
like, because we keep talking about meditation practice and about how this is really essential to get us to where we want to be. And I think it is. But then I read something in this book and I was like, dude, it completely turned everything upside down to where I was like, man, really?
Yeah.
So now we're going there. I'm gonna
Okay.
get it right now. I want to
All
read
right.
this, dude, because I think you'll get something out of it. I think
Yeah, I'm
everyone will.
curious.
Let me just get up and get it real quick here, actually,
Uh,
and then I gotta find it, of course.
where like is it a book that you've had?
Yeah, I bought it. I bought it probably like 3 weeks ago. This is the book,
Oh,
the
okay.
Ashtavakra Gita. I'm probably botching the first part. Um, but anyway, man, so I've got to find this specific part where, oh, I think I just saw it and then I lost it, where they're talking about exactly what I want to go into here. Yeah, it really, it really threw me for a loop. Uh, but hey, while I'm looking at this, let
Yeah.
me, because this might take me a second to find it. Let me read the last part of the Tao, the Tao Te Ching that I was going to read, which comes from verse 17. That way, maybe you can talk about it, and I'll be listening to you, but I'm going to look for this as well.
Okay.
Um, so here's the other one I was going to read. The great leader speaks little. He never speaks carelessly. He works without self-interest and leaves no trace. When all is finished, the people say, we did it ourselves.
Mm,
And the people are the people under that leader.
yeah. No,
So what do you
that's
think of that one?
yeah, that's real powerful. That's getting into like anti-Machiavelli. Um uh
Yeah.
um no, that I mean that's real powerful. I mean, I think you getting into like armies and generals and stuff like that of you hear about the ones that are um you know just really intelligent and they don't everything they say is just very meaningful, impactful,
Mm-hmm.
uh
Yeah.
and their presence is just their presence is very powerful, but they're commanding armies, so it's not really him that's doing it, but he is behind it all, right? He's the mastermind.
Yeah.
um but you have everybody else doing, I guess, what you want them to do. uh
Right.
but and they're doing it willfully, right? You're not really having to threaten them to do it. But on this on all this, with the Tao and stuff, I'm starting to think like, okay, if we're gonna be in this, if you're gonna participate in the world, you know, and you're gonna prep for that meeting, all that stuff, and even our jobs, again, it's in the world. It's not in reality. So
Yeah.
if we're, if we get good with the Tao, again, I don't know, like that's why I was asking about its age, because was it intended for reality, or was it intended for the world, or was it intended for both? Because I could see, okay, how the Tao could help you in the world of just when you do participate, how to kind of just bob and weave through the world to where it doesn't seem as heavy. And then you can, yeah, again, if you can't escape out of that world into reality, uh, it would help you, if you didn't know
Yeah.
where real was, it could help you in that. And, but I could see in the Tao, if you, in reality, out of this world, where it could really, be profound. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
think it could be like another, man, maybe another stepping stone or a way of, when I say becoming powerful, like just another thing that you could sharpen in your tool of uh becoming more enlightened. And he man, he's very silent and he's this way, but he's also hard in the Tao and he's really deep into that. And, it makes your aura or your presence even more, you know, uh, awe-inspiring when you walk into a room. Um,
Exactly.
so, I mean, again, so
Yeah.
things I'm playing in my mind right now as we're going through this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. No, that's good stuff. Yeah, so I finally found it, and this blew my mind. Again, this is this book right here, okay? And so this book is an Advaita Vedanta book. Um, and I won't get too much into that. Maybe we can talk about that more at a different time. But so in chapter 1, verse 15. Okay, so again, back to what I was saying earlier. Um, and I think it does kind of tie into the effortless action topic that we're talking about. So I was earlier talking about how you have to put in effort initially. You have to practice initially to get to that level where it does become effortless action, right? So the guitar player has to get, bloody fingers, calloused fingers. He has to really work that before he really kind of gets the groove in. And then he's, obviously practicing and trying to stretch his hands and all that stuff. But it gets to a point where, again, it's the instrument's an extension of himself. It's no different than walking down the street and he's able to just do like a crazy solo, right? There's people out there like that. Um, and you may not see the effort they put in to get there, but they're there now. So then it's like, okay, so talking about spiritual life, if we want to get to this place of effortless action where we're just flowing, then obviously we need to practice meditation. That's kind of the, at least in my mind, the essential practice for this path if we want to get there. And I do believe meditation is important. In this book, I don't want it to be a misconception, even talks about meditation being important. But there's one part in here that just threw me for a loop, and I'm going to read it right now, okay? And
All
let's
right.
see what this does.
Yeah.
Um, so this is one guy, like a guru, speaking to another guy, all right? Without getting into the details of who they are, that's basically what this is, right? So he's saying, you, and when he says you, he's not talking about you, the person. He's talking about you, the one pure consciousness, the universe, the oneness, right? So he's saying you are unattached actionless. It goes back into the effortless action. Actionless, self-effulgent, and without any taints. You practice meditation. This indeed is your bondage. Okay, so I read that and I go, okay, you practice meditation and that is your bondage. So then it goes to explain that a little bit more. Get this, all right? And when it's talking about the self here, whenever it's referencing the self, it's talking about that eternal self, right? Like the thing we've been talking about, right? Like just straight the being. This is when they say the self, it means the being, right? Okay, so the self is ever free. Therefore, it needs no meditation. So long as we are meditating, there are still traces of the ego in us, which alone can aspire for the selfhood and practice meditation. One who is trying to sleep, so long as he is trying, he's not asleep. One having reached sleep, the sleeper is no more trying to sleep. It is only the waker who can try to gain his sleep state. In the same way, so long as an individual is meditating, he has not apprehended the state of pure consciousness. Rare indeed are the seers of this caliber who have the audacity to declare so openly that to meditate upon the ever-free and the ever-liberated supreme reality is itself a symptom of the meditator's state of bondage. The limited alone will strive to reach the unlimited. The bound and the shackled alone need to struggle to attain liberation. To a sincere student of meditation, this verse has a precious secret suggestion. When all other thoughts have subsided, the mind and therefore the ego survives itself with the subtle vanity, I am meditating. Even this idea must finally be given up. So long as one maintains the awareness that I am trying to sleep, he cannot enter this state of sleep. I meditate is perhaps the last lingering thought in almost all seekers in higher meditation. The moment even this vanity is given up, the ego completely disappears into the vision of the reality. In short, in the supreme silence of meditation, a seeker should give up even the idea of doership experienced with him, such as I am meditating. This seems to be the mystic import of this direct advice.
No, that's super deep, man. Like crazy deep. You know, I'm staring off because I can't stare. Like I'm trying to find. So here's the thing. Yeah, as you're reading it, yeah, I'm trying to like take it all in.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
no, I feel you.
and like take it in and have a quick thought of what you're saying as you're reading it. Um, no, that's interesting. That's very interesting. Uh, yeah, well, okay. I mean, I get it. I think, on meditation isn't enlightenment. Meditation is a way to sharpen your tools to become more enlightened or more conscious. The act of meditating is is work to silence the mind. So in there again, that as I'm talking, I can see, okay, see, you're taking action, and it's not actionless. Because I have to put effort into meditating to achieve enlightenment or to help me achieve enlightenment. It's one thing that I need to do. And I understand, yeah, because once you have a thought, yeah, anything to say I, every time you say I, that is the ego, right? So, like the child that is you know, that hasn't talked yet, once, you know, that's another form of, as they're becoming more unconscious, is when they start to say, that's mine,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Now they've disassociated themselves as one, and now they're their own entity now. And they're starting to realize the mind is starting to say, oh, I'm not one, I'm me,
Right.
you
That
know,
separation.
and then all of a sudden, you know, it's just another step of another child going into unconsciousness, you know, and just, you know, just like all of us, right? None of
Yeah.
us know any better. Our parents and fathers and grandfathers, you know, I mean, nobody. We all went down the same path. But I think it's real interesting in a child, you know. I know I'm getting off, but it really does, um, you know, the pureness of a baby, you know, um,
Oh yeah.
probably as closest to you know, the almighty or a singularity than you'll ever know, you know.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but no, man, that's really interesting. I would want to read that multiple times and
Yeah, it's
ponder on
easier
it.
to see it, you know, than rather just like hear it because I know you're hearing me and you're having to like try to think of it or take it in and understand and comprehend what I'm saying when it's
Yeah.
probably easier to just like see it on the page and you know read it a couple times. But yeah, it's interesting, right? Because it's like if you're what I'm getting out of that is if you're meditating, you're still striving for something, right? When all you need to do is realize that you're already that thing that you're striving for.
Yes. Yeah. I like the thing also what you said when you're reading it, of saying you know, the being is it's always free. There's,
Mm.
you know, it always has been, or something like that,
Yeah.
when you read it. That
Yeah,
was very
it's
interesting to
completely
me. And
free at all times.
yeah, it's free at all times. There's really nothing you need to do. So what, I mean, again, it's the obstacle, again, I'm getting from it, is it all comes back, right? Of the root, the core problem is the mind.
Uh-huh.
Just to totally eliminate it. And it almost like, I mean, I'm not saying you'd be in a zombie state, but
Right.
honestly, I think
Yeah.
so. I mean, when you see like the monks or that one temple that we go to, and I thought it was like actually a real person, but and it was just a statue. But
Oh yeah.
you know, when they're just kind of, their eyes are kind of like half closed, and you're like, man, is that, you know, is he, the guy dead, or like they're just so still, right? I mean, and I don't even think they're. I think they get to a point where, yeah, it's not even meditation. They just go there. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they it's all, I don't know, man. See, that's it's getting my mind going. Because I was saying, like, now I'm thinking like, man, could you like detach in this body if you got real good at it, to where you kind of like, again, I know I'm getting sci-fi here, but like where you travel, like where it's just you're there, but you're not really there. Does
Yeah.
that make any sense?
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's almost like, man, I can experience so much just being here, and like the world doesn't even matter to me anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like I can, yeah, I could travel anywhere, or go to this other dimension or something, and I just sit here and I can be in the places that people have never could. Language can't explain it,
Yeah.
right? You only can experience it. And that's what,
Exactly.
well, I think one of the first things you said on that was something about language. Um, or maybe I'm getting the last Tao.
Oh yeah, that was that one. Yeah.
Yeah, it was that one. But that's really interesting. I'm glad you shared that, Matt. That's I'm gonna have to, yeah, I'm gonna get that title of that book and read that. It's sounds like it's got some pretty interesting things in there.
Oh yeah. It's dude, yeah, it's really good. Which, at first you look at it and it almost looks like it kind of has like a children's drawing on it,
Yeah, as I was
so
saying, like
you're kind of
like
like,
it's gonna have drawings
okay.
in there and like the clouds with sayings in it, like
Yeah.
you know.
So yeah, when I saw that, I was like, but I mean, I saw reviews that
I'm just thinking maybe you like open it up and it's like one of those pop-up books.
right. You're like, wait a minute, this
Yeah, like
this
wait,
wasn't what I was looking for. No, but hey, you can't judge a book by its cover, right?
hey,
Like,
no, no,
dude, like literally, this thing is just packed full of like some heavy stuff, which is actually really good and really enlightening. Um, but hey, even to your to your point of going different places. I mean, I didn't do this the other day, but it was like what I was sharing with you in the airport, where I didn't do the whole like traveling to different planets. But hey, I mean, again, yeah, might sound kind of sci-fi, but I think that could be possible to like, you know, go somewhere else, and
yeah,
within yourself. Like you said, the singularity is within, so you could technically kind of go the inverse and,
right,
you know, find out what's that way. But but
right, because yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
no, I fully agree with you on that. I actually kind of want to try that now. But
Yeah,
but what I was going to say was I wasn't necessarily doing this in the airport, but I like I was telling you the other day, I was going up to the long line in security, and my initial reaction was the natural reaction that I think most people would have, which is like, man, it's a long line. Like, is there another gate I can try to find that's maybe shorter or whatever? And I thought about it for a minute. I was like, maybe I'll try to like walk down and find another one and maybe it'll be shorter. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Wait a minute. Just why don't you just take in the moment for what it is and enjoy the moment and just be here now and don't even worry about the line. And like I learned to appreciate everything around me. Like I was looking at just people walking around. Dude, I looked over at a Coke machine and I was like, look at all the different options in that machine that one could choose from.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, I learned to enjoy that. I was like, you
yeah,
could
yeah,
get a Coke, you could get a Sprite, like little
yeah,
simple things that look kind of like what a child would do.
yeah.
You were
What
talking
would
about
the
it.
wise one choose? Coke or yeah,
Yeah, yeah, but it was just like silly stuff,
yeah,
but I was just trying to appreciate being in that moment for everything that it was, and it made
mm,
me like as crazy as it sounds, it made me enjoy being in line. You know,
yeah,
so crazy. And then yesterday, I was in the airport again, and I was waiting on my bag to come through. Um, and I was sitting down in a chair, and I was like, I'm not gonna get on my phone. I'm not gonna listen to any music, because I bring headphones on the airplane and stuff. Um, I was like, I'm not gonna listen to any music. I'm not gonna look at my phone. I'm just gonna sit here in total silence, just by myself. And whenever my bag comes, it comes, right? And then I looked down, like I was looking down at my body in the chair, and I literally felt myself kind of like almost leave my body for a minute. Like I was hovering over maybe about like a foot.
Mm.
And I was like, this is just an object. It's not even me. I
Yeah.
was like, I'm just observing this thing, and you know, like locally, yeah, I'm maneuvering it, but like it's not who I really am. And I
Yeah.
was just like outside of it. And I just like sat in that moment, and dude, it was freaking awesome. I was like,
Yeah.
dude, this is badass.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, but you know, I say all that not to be like, oh yeah, I've gotten so good at this stuff. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say like so many people, and if you look around, and obviously we've been this way too. You look around, they're on their phones, they're doing stuff, they're like trying to get to the next thing, and the mind, right? The mind is just flowing. It is
Oh
like
yeah.
hopped up on everything, you know?
Hopped up. Yeah. It's on
And
that. Yeah.
and and I'm like to be in this place where there's, all these people, and it's kind of a little bit chaotic, and everybody's just going around doing all their stuff. To be in that place and to just sit and to like almost leave your body for a minute and just kind of like I literally felt like I was by myself, like no one else was around me, even though
Yeah.
like it was completely crowded. And I'm like, man, to just sit in the moment and not have your phone on, not have anything else going on, not be in a busybody with the mind, you can really just for me, like all the suffering goes away. You're not worried about anything. You're just right there right now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I know I'm going off, but
No, I love it, man. I love it. I love it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I hear everything that you're saying. I mean, you cut the mind off, man, and just everything just fades away, and just nothing matters anymore. And because nothing does matter, you're just there. You know what I mean? And I know we say that all the time, but man, it's very powerful. It's very therapeutic. I don't like to say even therapeutic because I mean, yes, it's therapeutic because we're in this world, but it really, I mean, like you can stay there all the time. It's not like something that you just do when you're feeling down, or you don't only have to do it for that reason. You can actually stay there. You can dwell there forever, you know? Um, so yeah, man, I know the feeling. I try, and it helps because it keeps it fresh in my mind. 'Cause that's why I like doing these talks. And sometimes, throughout the week I'll just come back to the talk and just listen to it because it's a refresher.
right.
Every week after we talk, like tomorrow, Saturday, I'll be something will come up, but I guarantee you 2 or 3 times out of the day tomorrow, like maybe the talk or just because we've been talking about it, something will happen and when I say zone out, I'll just kind of do the thing of just like, whoop, no mind, and I'll just shut off, like somebody just turned the switch off. And I'll just be at peace, you know what I mean? And I'll do that a couple times tomorrow. I already know I will. And you know, um, it'll go through. So, I'll be driving. I think it happened this week. I was driving and something pissed me off, and it was probably something silly. And then I was just like, dude, why are you getting mad? Just just cut it all off and then just shut it off. And then nothing, nothing, I don't even care anymore. And like I'm starting to, just starting to float back to euphoria, you know? Maybe put a little symphony music on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Oh
to
wait,
give the
you
brain a
listen to
little bit
that? You
of a
listen to classical?
appetizer. Yeah, sometimes, yeah, I'll do that. Dude, all right, check this out. There's this band from uh El Paso. Dude, all right, the first time I heard this band, I was driving to your house when I came up looking real redneck with that ripped off shirt and
Oh yeah.
yeah. Uh, I right when I parked in front of your house, dude, this song came on, and it was just like this bass, and it reminded me of you. And I was like, man, see, is that a coincidence? Because I know you played the bass. It was like, boom, and it had just like this bass line or whatever verse, and that's how it started off. It's like, man, when I get back out from Matt's place, I'm gonna turn that song because I've never heard it before. And dude, this band is like amazing, bro. Like amazing. It's like the band that I've been searching for forever. Dude, this
That's awesome.
and dude, every song, get this, like almost sounds the same. Have you ever heard of I kid you not, man. But so yes, I bring that up because yeah, I listen to symphony music. Um I do that. It kind of gets me obviously it if I listen to music with words, obviously I'm using my mind. I mean, yes, I guess
Yeah.
technically the symphony is still food for the mind, but I guess I don't have to use my mind as much, right? I don't have to interpret words.
Oh
It's
yeah.
just kind of soft music. It just kind of you kind of trance out a little bit. But there's this band, man. It's called Cigarettes After Sex.
Okay.
Dude, dude, I'm telling you, man, this is like it's very trance music, man. I like, dude, they're coming to town in September, and I'm gonna go see them. And I don't even go to concerts. I don't know
That's
what kind of
awesome.
crowd's gonna be out there, but
Hey, go for it.
I'll probably be very out of place. You know, I'll probably be the only one with a cowboy hat on, uh,
Right?
but yeah, no, man, yeah, I'll listen to that stuff when I'm driving and whatnot. Just kind of,
It's funny
you know,
you bring that up because most of the music I listen to now, and I'm not saying all of it, but most of it doesn't have any words. You
okay,
know, like I'll
yeah,
listen to like ambient electronic type stuff and like chill out, you know, and even like meditation music, but just like stuff that'll not feed the mind, like you said, you know.
yeah,
And
yeah,
granted, you know, I still like bands that sing and, you know, I like metal and stuff like that. And it's fun to play on drums and bass, you know. So, I mean, I'll still do that, um, but that's like maybe, dude, I would even say that's like maybe 10% of the time. The other 90 is like, I listen to stuff that doesn't have any words at all. Cause I'm just
yeah.
like, it's crazy because it is like another form of programming, you know, where you especially like the real mainstream kind of poppy stuff, I feel like really
Oh,
just I mean it's like feeding the machine, man. Like it is
oh yeah,
so it's just
dude,
like
your mind is just moshing, bro.
oh yeah.
No matter what it is, yeah. That the newer the
Yeah,
age the music is, it's just like because then even the music, like the newer age, is a lot of it's computer generated itself. You know, it's not playing instruments. It's probably they're probably pushing it a button to make that sound, right?
right.
Like those
Yeah.
boards where they had just have the sounds and stuff. So yeah, so the mind's just, every day as the world
Cuz
evolves, it's just like,
can you really
yes.
can yeah, can you think about this like I'm trying to think now about how you know we live in the mind and the world lives in the mind so much. Think about like you're getting up in the morning, you know, because people do stuff like this. And I'm not bashing anybody, but I'm just saying it's so prevalent in society that when you really start to think about these things and kind of you know awaken a little bit, you're really like, man, we really are just like the mind is like obese. We're just feeding
Oh,
it like you know.
so much, man.
And so it's like think about this: like you wake up and let's say you have like a radio for your alarm, right? So you wake
Yeah.
up and it's immediately like either the news or like some like song on the radio. So that's how you're starting your day. Then let's say you go in your kitchen, you're getting some coffee, which I drink coffee. I love coffee, but let's just say, you're getting coffee, you're flipping on the news in the morning and you're just ingesting that. Then let's say like you're driving to work, and I mean, I guess after COVID, a lot of people are working from home still, but you're driving to work and you got the radio on, and again, it could be music, it could be like news, or something like that. You get to work, you hate your job, you wish everything was different. You're gossiping with people in the office and just talking shit about everybody and this and that. And, you know, then you got to go back home and maybe you got family you're dealing with and, you're fighting with your wife, you're mad at your kids, and, then you go, you know, drink a six pack and listen to more music or the news whatever,
Yeah.
or you
Yeah.
go watch, let's say you go watch a movie at that point, and then it's just something about whatever it could be, some crazy story, and dude, it's like, man, you're just kind of like the thing you were you were saying the other video where like you're just,
Yeah. Oh,
and like
yeah.
you're like, man, your day is just jam packed with the mind being overfed, overstimulated. And
Yeah.
people live like that. And it's like, dude, if you live like that, no wonder people are either going crazy or committing suicide or like, I mean, man, like I'm so glad that there's a way out, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, you're totally at the mercy of a false entity. You're totally at the mercy of something that isn't you, something that's possessed, it's form of possession, right? I mean, you're at the mercy of it. And if it wants to go, then it's gonna take you with it. You know what I mean? And once it becomes, but yeah, it's a thing. That's what it is. You know, it's when the mind can't find any more playgrounds,
Mm,
then this world it's useless for it anymore. And it's just like, okay, I'm done, you know? And it's not you making that decision that's not your thought, of any type of suicidal thoughts. That's the mind. It's just, it's not happy here anymore. And the mind, I feel, is something that's always trying to chase it's always trying to achieve what the being is, and it never can quite get there, you know?
mm.
It's it's
Wow,
all
that's
it's on
profound.
its yeah, it's on its coattails, but it just can't get it. That's why, you know, the being, like, pure happiness, that, like, when you're in that state, that's true happiness. It'll never get boring. That's a true state of happiness. Now, the mind's way of happiness, it knows of happiness, but it doesn't know how to achieve happiness. So it uses things, you know, that you go out and get for a form of happiness, but it's not true happiness, because all of a sudden, that doesn't bring you happiness anymore. A relationship, right? Or that new toy or a boat or whatever. Yeah, it was fun at one point in time and it was awesome, but now it's boring and I'm off to the next. And it's just it's a false happiness. Because if it was true happiness, it would always bring you happiness.
It'd be lasting, yeah.
It would be everlasting, yeah. So it's just the mind almost just trying to cope with itself. The mind is crazy. The mind is chaos. And again, that's why the world is chaotic. I would, I know it's probably been said, but world, like people say, oh, could there ever be peace, in this world? I say no, there never could be peace. Well, I don't know if I've been, but I would say there cannot be peace in this world, but there can be peace on earth.
Hmm.
That that makes so you get like in this world there will be no peace because it's ruled by the mind and the mind is chaotic. But on
Right.
this earth, which is reality, not this world, right? But just earth,
Yeah,
out this world. Yes, because then there's just nothing but, beings. And
exactly.
there's no more mind there, then there's peace. Because there's no more ego. Uh, but yeah, we're
So actually, to try to cap it all off and maybe come to a conclusion here, you just reminded me of a good thing, maybe or an interesting thing, which happens to be good also. But maybe the effortless action, the Wu Wei, is living within the being, living through the being, and not the mind. Because I feel like if you're living in the mind, there will always be kind of this overexertion, right? And there will always be this extra effort to try
Mhm,
to obtain something or try to grasp onto something or, uh, again, new playground, all of that. But if you're living within the being, there's this harmony, there's this flow, there's this rhythm that you naturally kind of fall into, and there's no there's there's no real exertion there, right? You're still doing things, you're still performing actions, you're still completing tasks, whatever, but you're doing it through the being. So even though you're doing things and it may seem like you're doing a lot of things, you're really doing nothing, right?
mhm. Yeah.
Um, I feel like that's really where it's at.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. I I see where you can implement this in your everyday life in the world and job and stuff like that. And to where you could cope better. Um, but yes, I do feel all this stuff is a way of, like you said, you know, the being and and just simplifying things. And it's not as chaotic and you're not worried about stuff that, doesn't really matter. And so if you're not worried about stuff that doesn't really matter, you can go out in the world, you can participate in the world, even if you haven't been on the other side yet. You haven't experienced that detachment yet of reality, of real reality. You're still trying to find it. I think the Wu Wei could that could be a coping, maybe a gateway or a path to if you haven't quite, still trying to figure this other stuff out of how to cope, until you find your way, coping with the world in a more in a better way, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
well, that's good
uh,
stuff, man.
yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that'll about do it for this one. We'll go ahead and close it out. I think we've had a nice, good, long, deep conversation. I've enjoyed it.
yeah,
So I'm going to look forward to the next one. And yeah,
absolutely.
anything else you want to say before we close it out?
I will say this, uh, for the people that have started to subscribe, thank you. Um, we would love, anytime someone wants to just put something in the comments of possibly topics. Me and Matt would love to. We're not going to shy away from anything. So anything that you might think of, type it up. We'll see it, and it just might be next video. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah, just let us know. And but until then, again, we'll be here every week talking about consciousness, talking about uh, trying to simplify things. And if you're in a bad way, remember always that you don't have to be there. There is a way out, and it's not external, it's all internal. And uh, yeah, if you're not okay right now, soon you will be. I promise you, because we've been there. Um, and our lives are great now. So, uh, till then,
Absolutely,
guys,
man.
y'all be easy. See y'all next week.
Yeah. Love it. All right, y'all take care. See you for the next one.